B Corp certification is a third-party credential offered by B Lab, a nonprofit organization. This certification verifies that a company meets stringent standards of social and environmental performance, accountability, and transparency. While it can be a powerful signal of commitment to sustainability and stakeholder interests, the process is complex, expensive, and not suitable for every business. Here's a thorough breakdown of what the certification entails, its associated costs, and how to determine whether it aligns with your organization's goals. B Corp certification is not a legal structure or tax designation. Instead, it functions as a certification, similar to LEED for buildings or Fair Trade for supply chains. Companies seeking certification must undergo the B Impact Assessment, BIA, which evaluates performance across 5 key areas: governance, workers, community, environment, and customers. Achieving certification requires a minimum score of 80 out of 200, with the median score for companies completing the BIA without intending to certify sitting around 50. Additionally, companies must sign B Lab's Declaration of Interdependence, undergo a verification review, and in most U.S. states, amend their governing documents to prioritize stakeholder interests alongside shareholder returns. As of early 2025, there are approximately 9,000 certified B Corps across more than 90 countries. Understanding the B Impact Assessment, BIA. The BIA is a free, publicly accessible tool designed to evaluate how a company operates, compensates employees, engages with its community, and manages its environmental impact. The assessment is divided into 5 categories, each weighted differently. Governance, 10%. Focuses on decision-making structures, mission alignment, transparency, and board accountability. Workers, 25%. Examines compensation, benefits, safety measures, training programs, and employee engagement. Community, 25%. Considers local hiring practices, supply chain standards, civic engagement, and charitable contributions. Environment, 25%. Evaluates energy use, emissions, water and waste management, and land stewardship. Customers, 15%. Assesses the impact of products or services on underserved populations, data privacy, and customer feedback mechanisms. The BIA is often used as a benchmarking tool by companies that do not intend to pursue certification. It allows businesses to identify areas for improvement and measure their performance relative to industry standards. Completing the BIA for the first time typically requires 20 to 40 hours for small businesses, with time requirements increasing for larger organizations or those with incomplete records. Companies can save their progress online and are not required to pay any fees until they decide to pursue certification. Financial commitment. What certification costs? B Lab charges an annual fee for certification, which is tiered based on a company's revenue. For example, companies earning less than $5 million annually pay $2,100. Companies with $5 million to $7.5 million in revenue pay $3,150. Companies with $50 million to $100 million in revenue face fees exceeding $10,000. Companies earning over $1 billion must contact B Lab directly for pricing. While the annual fee is significant, it is often the smallest part of the total cost. Hidden and adjacent expenses can include BIA preparation or consultant fees, $0 to $10,000 plus, depending on the scope of work needed to close the gap to 80 points. Legal costs for governance amendments, $500 to $5,000 plus, depending on jurisdiction and complexity. Policy and practice improvements, $0 to $20,000, depending on the gaps identified during the assessment. Internal staff time, $1,000 to $10,000, depending on the size and complexity of the organization. For small businesses with less than $5 million in revenue, the total first-time certification cost typically ranges from $8,000 to $25,000. For mid-sized companies earning between $10 million and $50 million, costs can escalate to $20,000 to $60,000 or more. Certification must be renewed every 3 years, requiring a full re-verification process. Additionally, ongoing maintenance is essential to ensure the company's score remains above 80, especially as the business grows or evolves. B Corp versus Benefit Corporation, key differences. A common misconception is that B Corp certification and Benefit Corporation status are the same. In reality, they are distinct. Benefit Corporation, a legal structure available in certain states that requires directors to consider all stakeholders in decision-making. It does not involve third-party verification, scoring, or fees to B Lab. B Corp certification, a private credential issued by B Lab that requires companies to meet rigorous standards, pay fees, and undergo verification. While the two are not mutually exclusive, B Lab often recommends or requires companies to adopt Benefit Corporation status as part of the certification process. Companies aiming to bake stakeholder accountability into their legal DNA may opt for the Benefit Corporation structure without pursuing B Corp certification. Who benefits most from B Corp certification? The value of B Corp certification varies based on the company's industry, target audience, and growth strategy. Certification tends to be most beneficial for consumer-facing brands. Companies in competitive markets such as food, apparel, beauty, or home goods often see a positive impact on purchase decisions due to the certification. Businesses seeking institutional partnerships, corporate procurement processes, and impact-focused supply chains in regions like Northern Europe and Canada often prioritize B Corp certified companies. Founders raising capital from impact investors. Certification can streamline due diligence with mission-aligned investors. HR and talent acquisition. Certified companies often report advantages in recruiting millennial and Gen Z employees who value mission-driven workplaces. Conversely, certification may be harder to justify for early-stage startups. Companies with limited resources may find the time and financial costs prohibitive unless certification is central to their strategy. B2. B companies. Businesses in industries where the certification is less recognized or valued may see little return on investment. Companies already operating at high standards. For organizations with robust impact reporting and policies, certification may offer little beyond the badge. The verification process. After submitting the BIA, companies undergo a multi-step verification process. 1. Risk review. B Lab checks for legal issues, negative press, or ESG controversies. 2. Document verification. Companies must provide evidence for their responses, such as payroll data, board meeting minutes, and environmental records. 3. Clarification period. Companies can respond to requests for additional documentation. 4. Score adjustment. Verified scores may differ from initial self-assessments. Companies scoring below 80 must address gaps to certify. 5. Legal confirmation. B Lab ensures governing documents include stakeholder language. 6. Certification issuance. Certified companies can then use the B Corp logo and appear in B Lab's directory. The process typically takes 3 to 6 months for small to mid-sized companies. Changes in standards. Since 2020, B Lab has introduced significant updates to its standards since 2020, culminating in the release of new B Lab standards, V2, in 2025. These updates include minimum requirements across 7 impact topics, stricter standards for governance and fair work, differentiated requirements for large and multinational companies, increased documentation and third-party assurance requirements. These changes make the certification process more rigorous than in previous years, with phased implementation of new requirements continuing into 2026 and beyond. Challenges and reasons for non-renewal. Companies may lose certification or fail to renew for several reasons. Score drops below 80. Growth can dilute impact per dollar, making it harder to maintain scores. Governance changes. Acquisitions or new investors may alter stakeholder commitments. Employee data shifts. Changes in compensation or benefits can affect scores. Documentation failures. Inability to provide evidence for practices can result in lost points. Voluntary withdrawal. Some companies conclude that the costs outweigh the benefits. Final considerations. Before pursuing certification, companies should evaluate whether the benefits outweigh the costs. Key questions to consider include: 1. Do your target customers, partners, or investors value the B Corp badge? 2. Does certification provide a competitive advantage in your industry? 3. Can your operations realistically score 80 plus without significant investment? 4. Is the cost justifiable against expected outcomes in sales, fundraising, or talent acquisition? 5. Do you have the capacity to manage the certification process without disrupting operations? For companies that answer yes to most of these questions, certification is worth exploring. For others, using the BIA as a free benchmarking tool and revisiting certification later may be a better option. Conclusion: B Corp certification is a credible, rigorous standard that can open doors with consumers, investors, and partners. However, it is not a shortcut to impact or a guarantee of success. For the right company, it offers a durable signal of commitment to social and environmental responsibility. For others, it may be an expensive exercise with limited returns. Start with the BIA, understand your score, and weigh the costs and benefits carefully before committing.